G'day everybody, where's Wally here? Well, while I wait for Antonio to even bother to have a look at my last video, I had a quick look at his last video. And he had a quick look at the Parker Solar Probe.
Region very close to the sun is so exceptionally hot. It's actually several thousand times hotter than the sun's surface itself.
But it's still not melting. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't melt. It's made out of armor of God. What is that thing made of that it doesn't melt? I mean, it obviously melted in order to be fashioned into that shape. Are you understanding, Globlings? Look, all of those metal things were fashioned, so smelted, melted, and formed into components that could be configured into that probe. So they do melt, but somehow they don't melt. Oh, I thought that there might be actual real data there. I think it's all of it just fantasy. All of it. Anyway, there you go. Thanks for that, Gleam. Jeez Louise, the fantasies these guys come up with. Yeah, what about it not melting? Never mind that. It's made out of magic.
And of course, in typical Dim Dim style, he just goes, this can't possibly be real, it has to be fantasy. So the one thing he thought of was that this thing has to have been fashioned from metals, therefore they were melted, and therefore if it's too close to the sun, they're going to melt. Can't possibly be real, just based on that. Well, what Antonio didn't do, which of course I did do, was go and do a little bit of research. And it turns out that the Parker Solar Probe has this little thing that shields them from heat. It's called, wait for it, a heat shield. And that thing is about 20% of the mass of the whole probe is for this one big chunk of heat shield. Who would have thought that rocket engineers would have thought to protect the spaceship from heat by putting up a heat shield? And of course the other thing they do is it's not in a circular orbit around the sun, it's doing an elliptical orbit. So it goes right out to Venus and then all the way back in and then back out in. So it only spends a very short time in that really close proximity. And also the probe goes very fast. 200 kilometers per second, fastest ever man-made object. Well done. And of course, rocket scientists, being really smart people, not unlike Antonio, they've designed the orbital mechanics quite cleverly in that the first couple of passes, it's not so close. It then does another little gravity assist off Venus and gets a little closer, does another gravity assist off Venus and gets a little closer and closer. And eventually they're going to run out of rocket propellant and correction fluids and whatever else they need to stabilize the thing, and they're going to lose control of it. And at that point, it will just burn up. But I wonder why Antonio didn't notice that in this particular photo, that the solar panels aren't even facing towards the front. That's because the solar panels would cook because they're sticking out from the side of the heat shield. So what they do, very cleverly these guys, is that when it starts its really close approach to the sun, it tucks everything in behind the heat shield to prevent it burning from the extreme heat. The only thing that gets the heat on it is the heat shield. And it's only there for a very short period of time. I think it's like less than a day. And away it goes back out near Venus again to cool down and get ready for the next loop around. So very smart guys, unlike our poor mate Antonio, who's just going to sit there and say, oh, look, this can't possibly be real. I think, Antonio, your biases are showing yet again. You have so much motivated reasoning, it's just not funny. It would seem, Antonio, that whenever you find something you don't know or you don't understand, that you just take that as confirming your own biases. Like, you don't know how this doesn't melt, but did you go and do the research?
I don't know.
Can you point to where the heat shield is?
I don't know.
There you go. How hard was that? Now, do you think that these scientists who know what they're doing made a heat shield that would withstand the temperatures?
I don't know.
Do you think that they chose how long they stayed within the hot zone?
I don't know.
Do you think they just stayed far enough away that the heat shield could withstand it?
I don't know.
Perhaps these guys who know a lot about it thought about what they needed to do to make sure this would work. What do you think, Antonio?
I don't know.
Okay, Antonio, so my question is to you, given that we've answered your questions about how they stopped the thing melting, will you now come out and say, well, I guess the Parker Space Probe is plausible after all? I doubt it.